Have you ever heard of the New England vampire panic? It sounds like something out of a horror movie, right? But this was a real event that swept through Rhode Island, Connecticut, and other parts of New England in the 19th century. People were terrified. They believed the dead were rising from their graves, feeding on the living, and spreading a deadly disease. That disease was consumption, what we now know as tuberculosis. But back then, they had a different explanation, a much darker one. Let me tell you the story of Mercy Brown. It's probably the most famous case from this era, and it's chilling. The year is 1892, in a small town called Exeter, Rhode Island. The Brown family was being decimated by consumption. First, the mother, Mary Eliza, died. Then, their eldest daughter, Mary Olive, followed soon after. The family was grieving, but things were about to get much, much worse. The son, Edwin, fell ill next. He was wasting away, coughing up blood, growing weaker by the day. As he fought for his life, his younger sister, Mercy, also contracted the illness and died. The family was devastated, but the townspeople were terrified. This wasn't just a string of bad luck. Believed something sinister was at play. Rumors started to fly. Whispers in the dark. They said one of the dead Browns was a vampire, preying on the living members of their own family from beyond the grave. The fear became so intense that the townspeople convinced the father, George Brown, to do the unthinkable. They needed to find the vampire and stop it before Edwin became its next victim. So, on a cold March morning, a group of men, including a doctor and a local reporter, went to the cemetery. Their mission, to exhume the bodies of the Brown family. Imagine the scene: a small group of men, armed with shovels, standing in a quiet, snow-dusted graveyard. They dug up Mary Eliza first. Her body was decomposed, just as you'd expect. Then they unearthed Mary Olive. Same thing, just bones. There was a sense of relief. Maybe they were wrong. But then they came to Mercy's grave. She had only been buried for 2 months in an above-ground crypt during the freezing winter. When they opened her coffin, the men were horrified by what they saw. Mercy's body showed almost no signs of decay. Her cheeks were still flushed, and when they pressed on her chest, they claimed fresh liquid blood flowed from her heart and liver. To them, this was undeniable proof. The lack of decomposition, the blood. Mercy Brown was the vampire draining the life from her brother, Edwin. What they didn't understand at the time was simple science. Mercy's body had been stored in a frigid crypt, which essentially acted like a freezer, preserving her body. The fresh blood was likely just the normal process of decomposition liquids settling in the organs. But in their terror, they saw only a monster. So they performed a ritual, a gruesome, desperate act they believed would save Edwin. They cut out Mercy's heart and liver. They took the organs to a nearby rock, built a fire, and burned them to ashes. The logic, as twisted as it sounds, was that destroying the vampire's heart would sever its connection to the living world. And what did they do with the ashes? They mixed them with water and gave the concoction to poor, sick Edwin to drink. This, they believed, was the cure, the final act to break the curse. It was a desperate folk magic remedy born from utter terror and a lack of medical knowledge. Did it work? Did this horrifying ritual save Edwin? No. 2 months later, Edwin Brown died. The vampire cure had failed. The whole tragic saga was a result of fear and misunderstanding. The vampire was a disease they couldn't explain, and the victims were their own loved ones. The story of Mercy Brown is a powerful reminder of how fear can drive people to do terrible things. It's a real-life horror story that feels like it was ripped from the pages of a Bram Stoker novel. In fact, some historians believe that when Bram Stoker was writing Dracula, he came across newspaper articles about Mercy Brown and the New England vampire panic, and it helped inspire his iconic creation. So, the next time you think of vampires, Don't just picture capes and castles in Transylvania. Remember the cold graveyards of New England. Remember Mercy Brown, the girl who was branded a monster because people were afraid of a disease they didn't understand. It's a chilling piece of American history, a story where folklore and reality collided in the most terrifying way. Tita, it proves that sometimes the scariest monsters aren't the ones in stories, but the ones created by our own fear. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.